Hello and welcome to a live edition of the Nittany Dispatch. I am John Sauber, Penn State beat writer at the Center Daily Times. She is Audrey Snyder, covering Penn State for InsideTheLines.substack.com. And again, I cannot recommend enough that you go subscribe to all of Audrey Snyder's work over there. Audrey, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm coming hot off of, I was back in the classroom today. Some of our listeners know I work as an adjunct at Penn State. So first class of the semester, John, the campus is buzzing. I mean, not only
Yeah.
because like the bicycles are everywhere and I almost got hit by a kid on a bike, but we're rolling. They're excited. The campus is lively. It's crowded. Traffic is a thing. We are so back.
Yes, and we will be previewing Penn State's game against Nevada, making our college football playoff predictions today. We're going to start off with James Franklin's press conference on Monday, though, because I think it was one of the most enlightening that we've had since, this is my fifth season on the beat. It's probably the most enlightening in that time period. Before we get too deep, though, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching live on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button down below. Hit the subscribe button. That really helps us out. Same with those 5-star Apple reviews over on Apple Podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. But yes, Monday's press conference was almost shockingly helpful, right? Like
It was a talker. I think
yes.
we can call it a talker.
Yes. James Franklin gave us a lot of info about where Penn State stands right now with its depth chart. I joked after he left that maybe next time they just print all of that out, send it to us, send us a depth chart, make it a little easier. But it's fine. I do appreciate it. We got a lot of info. I'm curious, Audrey, I think I know the answer to this, but what do you think is the most fascinating thing he said, whether that's a position battle or an outcome that has already happened there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and the neat thing with this, again, it's just how the human brain is wired, I think. Like, James is giving us answers and he's glancing in front of him at his notes, which presumably would be the depth chart, right? Like, I think that's how it is. But the most interesting thing to me was that the safety competition has been decided. It is AJ Belgrave Shorter who is in line to start opposite Zakee Wheatley, which is interesting because so much of what we, the collective we on the beat, wrote this preseason was about King Mack, right? And Day Lane and kind of the competition there. And meanwhile, it's Belgrave Shorter who James said led the team in interceptions this preseason. So not to send anyone into a spiral about the offense, but someone has to lead the defense, right? But yeah, I think that's interesting just because, we know that the other guys are going to play. James said as much, but so many of these competitions, they're hesitant or they're reluctant to publicly name a starter ahead of Saturday. And that was not the case at safety, which tells me that there's a little bit more margin there that, Belgrave Shorter has run away with it a little bit more than what we've seen at some of these other positions, I think.
Yeah, and James did say that all four guys will play, presumably meaning Day Lane and King Mack. I would anticipate King Mack will have a decent opportunity to maybe come back in that competition. But yeah, you're right. Belgrave Shorter has evidently run away with this. This isn't, necessarily about guys not stepping up. I don't think. I think it's about him taking that position from everyone else based on what Jim Knowles said a few weeks ago. He kind of mentioned him out of nowhere. He got asked about Lane and Mack and like how they were progressing this fall. And he said that Belgrave Shorter is rising. And I kind of, probably stupidly dismissed it at first. Like, he's just giving them some props. He's involved in the competition. And then I asked the question to James about the safeties, and I had actually started writing down that King Mack was going to be named the starter. And then I looked up because he didn't say that. He said Antoine Belgrave Shorter. And I think that was a surprise, like you said, to a lot of us. A lot of us had King Mack in that position. But yeah, I think he's had to have gone out and earned it. This is a very good defense. They're not going to hand this position to anyone. They had Lane take a few starts last season, playing that role, so they know they have someone that can reach a certain threshold at least. But to me, it seems like Belgrave Shorter should be an upgrade on that. That they should be able to do more on the back end. I think it's helpful that he's as athletic as he is. They're going to be asking him to do quite a bit, I would guess. I would guess Zakee Wheatley's has to do quite a bit. And the way that this defense operates, Jim Knowles values his safeties big time. And I think Knowles is going to put those guys in position to succeed, but he also needs to trust them. And I think part of what we're finding out with this is just that Jim Knowles trusts Belgrave Shorter. And that's pretty big for this defense.
Yeah, and that's notable for a younger player. And I think the other part of this, too, is just and I think this speaks to the development that Penn State has done. And obviously the talent identification is part of that. but both of these starting safeties started their collegiate careers as cornerbacks, right? And so they've kind of had the foresight, had the knowledge to say, you know what, like Zakee Wheatley's pretty big dude. Like let's put him out to safety, see what happens. Then obviously you look at Belgrave Shorter, they go through kind of a similar transition with him, and I think that's again as much of the identification of the talent, but also being able to get these guys up to speed. I mean, one of the things I'm so curious about on Saturday is, and again, I understand we're grading on a curve here, but how does this defense look? How is the communication piece? Because we did find out, John, who is wearing the green dot for the
Yes.
defense. Or green, I guess green dots plural, because it could be
Yes.
two guys doing it, but you can only have one on the field at a time.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. It will not be Tony Rojas, who we anticipate being on the field for most of the snaps. It will be either Amari Campbell or Dom DeLuca. I tend to think, after re-listening to the way James said it, that means Amari Campbell is likely to start here, and that Dom DeLuca is kind of that swing linebacker who goes back and forth. When Rojas needs a breather, he comes in for him. When Campbell needs one, he can come in for him. That being said, I think the snaps are going to be pretty cleanly split. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 55-45 or 50-50 when it comes to those two specifically. Of course, you talk about a game like Saturday, they're going to get other guys in. He's going to see Anthony Specca and Alex like all of these guys are going to play. Keon Wiley will play. And so they'll reach into the depth a little bit on Saturday. But I think as of now, if they had to play Oregon right now, it would probably be close to a 50-50 split. That being said, Campbell being a little bit better of an athlete than DeLuca, better lateral mover at least, I think that will help him against some of those opponents like Oregon, like Ohio State, and kind of allow him to be, the center of the defense, if you will. And I would anticipate that both of those guys that will play a bunch.
Yeah, and Campbell wore the green dot at UNC before, so
Yes.
he is familiar at least with doing that, because there are some gymnastics involved with it, right? As James Franklin called it, because if they end up in a scenario where DeLuca and Campbell are on the field at the same time, you can only have one player with the in-helmet communication, that green dot. So you have to make sure that the guy has the right helmet. And I can't be the only one who thought this when James Franklin said this, but it took me back to the Rob Bolden, Matt McGloin quarterback competition, where I just remember watching these guys from the press box, and between each series, it's like, okay, who's going in next? And they're both looking for their helmet and they can't find the helmet. And it's just one of those scenes that you just don't remember. Now, I'm not concerned about this here. They are detailed to the nth degree with this program. But I do think it is just one of those little logistical hurdles. And the fact that the guy on the other side of this, which is also different from last year,
Yes,
is Jim Knowles, right? Because remember last year, it was Dan Connor who was doing the pre-snap communications because, well, John.
Not the entire time.
You probably couldn't hear Tom Allen, or you could understand him, right?
Yeah, Tom Allen was excitable, right? And would get into the game. And I'm sure there was some tone shifts depending on how the game was going. So they kind of moved that communication to Dan Connor last year after the Bowling Green game, I believe it was, that switched.
It was early on, yeah.
And, now Jim Knowles has talked about how it's his job to be as calm and cool and collected as he can up in the coach's box, and to be focused on that and be able to, be present, I guess, and not kind of dealing with the emotional aspect. So I'm not overly surprised that he is the guy in the headset, so to speak, but I'll be curious to see how loud he is and if the players can hear him for the opposite reason, because it's not as much the raspiness, but Jim Knowles is pretty soft spoken.
It's true. He is.
So
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yes. And Beaver Stadium gets really loud. That being said, I assume that he did the same thing at Ohio State. I don't know that for certain, but I would assume that they will be fine. He's been in plenty of loud environments, and we'll handle the situation well, I assume. One of the other things that I think was really interesting about James's presser on Monday, though, was the wide receiver depth chart, which he essentially gave us the two deep of. He gave us that Kyron Hudson and Trevor Pena are in all likelihood going to be helmet tap guys who are playing until they're tired, then they tap their helmet and they get out. And when Hudson comes out, it'll be Kobe Howard that goes in. And when Pena goes out, it'll be Tyzier Denmark that goes in. And in the third starting spot, it will be Devontae Ross and Liam Clifford. I would guess that Ross will be starting. I think that rep share will be split closer. That won't be a helmet tap situation, I don't think. That being said, I I think it has a chance to get there if Ross, can get healthy, can fully recover from the bumps and bruises, as James Franklin put it, that he suffered during the preseason. Because I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think Devontae Ross has a chance to be the number one receiver this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets healthy and all of a sudden that comes to fruition.
So when James Franklin said this, he said he did list, and again, he's saying it. Maybe it's what comes top of mind. Maybe it's the depth chart. We'll find out Saturday. But yeah, when he gave us those top six, he said Ross first, then said Clifford. For what that's worth, I don't
Yes.
know. We'll find out. I tend to wonder because based off of James Franklin's history and his loyalty to players and senior players who've been here a long time, I would not be surprised if Liam Clifford gets the start. But again, the snap counts tell the story. That's, I think, the bigger theme here with all these positions. I think so often people get wrapped up in, oh, this guy started or this guy. Well, it doesn't really matter who starts. What really matters most is how many snaps people play. Like when you're in the transfer portal and you're looking to play elsewhere, players don't want to know how many starts. They want to know how many snaps. That's the more valuable detail. And so I think the notable thing with this receiving core is that Clifford and Ross are both going to play, which, I saw some of the widespread panic that people had that was, oh my God, if it's a timeshare, then clearly Ross hasn't run away with it. Well, you can also look at that as having a good problem that Liam Clifford is still in the conversation. And the fact that Ross has been banged up this preseason, he's good to go now, but he, was not full go all preseason. Like that is absolutely a factor here. So yeah,
I don't know. I tend to think that we kind of know what Liam Clifford is at this point, and that I think it's not entirely the injury, but I think it's probably mostly the injury at this point.
John, we're gonna find out Saturday, and,
yes,
and I think that's the other part of it. Is seeing what they do here, but I do think the Kobe Howard piece is interesting because James Franklin said they haven't fully green-lit Howard yet, meaning like they're not for certain that he's going to burn his red shirt, but he's one of their 6 best receivers. But what they're waiting on is they want to see more from Howard on special teams. And James Franklin, which he typically does this time of year, and I understand it with freshmen, he kind of makes the public case of, hey,
yes,
if you want to play this year, you're going to have to play special teams. And he banged that drum a little bit on Monday. But yeah, the fact that Howard is in that mix, I think, is interesting because he's somebody that we heard a lot about this preseason. He's a guy who I think there's a lot of upside there. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be Saturday, right? Just like it was last year in West Virginia. Everybody wanted to know about the receiving core. Well, remember last year, John, that season opener, there were some signs of promise for the receiving core. And yet by the end of the year, so again, I think we just have to temper expectations for however much we think we might learn on Saturday, just especially in this case because of the opponent.
I think we all probably fell for it a little bit after the West Virginia game last year.
We were all delirious because of the lightning delay.
I know that's right. But I think part of it too, if I remember correctly, I think I said something about this might just be a flash in the pan because Trey Wallace was really capable of those. He had done that in the past. They needed to see the consistency, and lo and behold, they didn't. And that's kind of why the room has been flipped. That being said, Penn State wanted Trey Wallace back. To be abundantly clear. I would anticipate him being Ole Miss's probably number 2 or number 3 and having a productive year down there. We'll be curious to see if he's more consistent than guys like Pena and Ross and Hudson are at Penn State. But yeah, I think we're going to learn something on Saturday. I don't know that we're going to learn enough until Oregon, right? It almost feels like, and that being said, read everything we write. Listen to everything
there
we
will
say.
Be takeaways. There will be thoughts.
Yeah, but I think everyone's kind of biding time a little bit, right? Like we're kind of waiting till Oregon till we learn something and learn, okay, you're trying to pick up the bits and pieces for the next 3 weeks, try and figure out the depth, try and figure out, of the transfers, like who's ready for this level, who is on the same page with Drew Aller. Like you're kind of reading the tea leaves a little bit, and then against Oregon, we're just going to find out. There's going to be no reading the tea leaves. It'll be all laid bare.
Ready or not.
Yes, for everyone to see on September 27th. So I think that'll be really interesting how much we can kind of pick up on until then with this wide receiver group specifically. One of the other major ones is the offensive line, where James Franklin listed 8 players, if I remember correctly.
What was it, 7?
I think it was 8.
Because he didn't mention Javen Williams
That's
by
right.
name, but
Yes,
I
he
think
did.
we could pencil him in as 8. Yeah.
I think 7 is fair. With from left to right, that being Drew Shelton, Venga Ioane, Nick Dawkins, Anthony Donka, and Nolan Rucci as the presumed starters, with TJ Shanahan and Cooper Cousins as the first two off the bench. And I, again, if I remember correctly, was pretty dismissive when he mentioned TJ Shanahan earlier this fall, and said, he's probably just lumping him in. That seems to be real, right? It seems to be the case that they're going to play all of those guys, and they can mix and match with this group
Yes.
because of Donko's versatility, because Nolan Rucci can play both the left side and the right side at tackle. So if something happens, they kind of pull one guy out, and then Cooper Cousins presumably goes in at whatever spot, and then they reshuffle things, right? Like, I think they're in a really good position in that regard because of the versatility. I do think it will be interesting to see how they handle if something happens to, say, Venga Ioane, right? Like, is Cooper Cousins just shifting? Is he going straight to the left side? Is Donka moving over there?
Yeah.
Because you want some level of continuity too. But if something does happen, they're in a really good spot because, as Franklin said, they have 7 guys they feel confident in. And who knows? Maybe Shanahan has a chance to end up winning a job by the end of the season. I think he probably, when he got to Penn State, was a little behind, and now it seems like he's made up that ground and then some.
Yeah, he's firmly in the mix. And I think the part of, what does the actual 2 deep look like for that offensive line is where it's interesting, just because they have the versatility. Like John said, you can mix and match so many of these guys, and the position flexibility there is remarkable. In my time covering Penn State, and this is season 16 for me, which is wild to say, I have not covered an offensive line with this much depth and this much versatility. And that's a credit to Phil Troutline and what they've been able to do here. But I think it goes beyond like this group, right? It's also a matter of when you're recruiting. Phil wanted a very specific body type, wanted, a specific level of athlete that they could train. And that was going to take time. And what I want to say is that when you look at all that this offensive line has gone through, right? I think we all remember the scars from the sanctions and the Temple game and the image of the 2 guys blocking each other at one point, right?
That's the second time you brought up that Temple game in like 3 weeks. I think everyone's going to start to hate you.
I remember the Temple game, John. I was there. And you know what I had to do after the Temple game? My assignment, I had to look at all of these sacks and clip them for GIFs. That was my assignment at the time. Yeah, so I remember the Temple game.
Yeah.
But I put all of that out there because I think it's important to note how far this group has come. And for all of the ragging that happened about the offensive line, and justifiably so, and obviously the situation was different with the sanctions, it was unprecedented, the transfer portal, yada, yada, yada. I get all that. Enjoy this. Enjoy that you have a good offensive line. Enjoy that James Franklin can talk about this offensive line, because remember a few years ago, he's like, I'm done talking about it. They got to go out and do it. And once they go out and do it, then we'll discuss it. They're at that point. They arrived. This should be one of the best lines in the country. Penn State is not shying away from talking about that either, which I think goes to just how good and how confident they are. But yeah, I think you're in such a unique spot, because even if you have an injury, and make no mistake, it's a long season, right? Could be 16 games again. You have to have this many players that you feel confident about going in. So the fact that James Franklin says, yeah, we think we have 7 starting caliber offensive linemen, that is super, super notable. The fact that there are guys beyond that 7 that they think can go in and play meaningful reps, that matters a heck of a lot too. So I just wanted to throw that out there, John, because again, look how far they have come.
Yes.
The fact that we're even saying, hey, maybe this is the best offensive line since 94. We'll see. The fact that they're even in that conversation is super, super impressive.
I think they're the best offensive line in the country. James Franklin mentioned the Joe Moore Award too. I think they are well within contention to win that award. They're going to lean on physicality and toughness, much like they did last year with the running game. I think Katron Allen and Nick Singleton are both going to have big seasons because of it. I think Drew Aller is going to be protected and have time. Like, I just think they're going to be excellent in all facets. And I think that's really, really going to be the game changer for this team, right? It's why, I know people have been, there are naysayers about, whether or not they can get it done, they can win big games, what have you. At the end of the day, most of the defensive lines they're going to face, if not all, won't be as good as their offensive line. And that matters a lot. We have seen time and time again that dictates the outcome of football games, especially in a playoff, especially in a one and done scenario like, football playoffs are. This is the nature of the beast, right? And if you can dominate a team physically, you're going to have a really good shot to win the game. And I think they're going to do that, frankly, most of the season, if not the entire season. I will be curious to see how it plays out. I could absolutely envision a path where their run to a national title looks a lot like Michigan's from a few years ago where they dominated physically. Before we get too much further, let's take a quick break to pay the bills and talk about our sponsors at the Nittany Dispatch. The rivalries, the marching bands, the upsets. Saturdays just got way more fun. College football is back. Think you know the game? Put your knowledge to the test with DraftKings Sportsbook and turn your picks into big payouts. With live betting, rivalry week odds boosts, and more, DraftKings Sportsbook has everything you need to own every Saturday. That includes this Saturday with Texas and Ohio State, where there's a 2.5-point spread between those two in what could be one of the biggest college football games of the season. And if you want to get in on the action, here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DISPATCH. That's code DISPATCH for new customers to get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook Casino, the crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
John, let me tell you about our good friends over at Roback. Roback is back, and they also have a new Penn State collection. Many Penn State fans, I'm sure, remember that Nick Singleton is one of Roback's athletes, and now you can find Penn State apparel from our friends over at Roback. And John, new users for Roback can save 20% with code TND20. That's 20% with TND20, as in the Nittany Dispatch 20. You can go over, check out Roback's Penn State line. It looks sharp. I will say I've seen the Penn State polo myself with my own two eyes. I saw someone wearing it out and about in Happy Valley just about a week ago. You can get one of those too. So check out roback.com and don't forget to use code TND20 to save 20% off your first purchase at Roback.
Okay, let's get back to James Franklin's press conference. Audrey, is there anything else that stood out to you from what he said on Monday? Because like I said earlier, this was the most open he's been. He was in a very good mood. He has been, frankly, I think he doesn't get enough credit for being more relaxed in probably the last 12 months or so. It seems like
he's got more jokes now.
Yeah, he's more comfortable.
Yeah.
He feels like he knows who he is. And I think he isn't really shying away from that anymore, maybe, right? Like his sense of humor is on display, and he ribs people, right? Like it is not.
Yeah, he made fun of your T-Rex arms earlier this year.
Yes, I was going to fire back about him being bald after he, mentioned my fresh beard and haircut, but I held off. I bit my tongue there.
I think the important thing with that is it's tough, right? No matter how many years you've been doing this, right? Like for James Franklin, you're in a public space and there are cameras in your face, and you're not going to talk like you would if the cameras weren't there. And that's really hard because I understand hey, this is a media session, so everybody has to kind of be on, but you feel that, and it just feels inauthentic for us sitting there, right? Like when I have the microphone in my hand, I still get a little tense, a little bit nervous.
I think everybody does.
Yeah, you have to be on, and the coach feels that too, right? And they have to be on as well because you're speaking beyond the people in the room. And so these lighthearted moments that you'll see, Big Ten Network clipped out yesterday of James Franklin shouting out our friend Frank Bodani for his fresh haircut, those little snippets, right? There's always the Thanksgiving week deal. He's trying to just let everybody in. And I think there is more of that, but just because the cameras are always on, you don't get that level of humanity, right? And that's with every coach here. But
Yes.
yeah, he was definitely in a good mood Monday, and I think that's, again, they've done a lot of winning around here the last few years
Yeah,
too, right? That
it
helps,
helps. But
right?
no,
That helps a lot.
I think that authenticity is starting to shine through more, right? I think, you mentioned always being on. It kind of didn't feel like he was as much. And I say that as a compliment, right? Like it felt like he was just hearing
Letting
questions
it
and
rip.
responding, right? Like he was just having a conversation with a bunch of people that were asking him stuff. And so, yeah, I think he seems to be in a really good place, which is good. I'm sure he knows he is two of the best coordinators in the country. He seems to be confident in the team this year. He has every reason to be. This is a team that we both have picked to make the national title game, and we'll see what happens if they can get there. But yeah, I will be really curious to see how that all kind of pans out and how he handles this season, because there are always a lot of eyes on Penn State football every single year, no matter how they're doing. This year, that is even broader. Believe it or not, which again is tough to believe considering how much they're under the microscope. But yeah, I think it will be interesting to see how he handles all that as we progress through the season. As if they lose a game, how he kind of bounces back from that. I don't like to be the body language doctor, but I do think we'll be able to learn.
Dr. Jon.
You're right. We've learned in the past, though, based on kind of his mood at press conferences, where the collective is, because they follow him, right? Like, these players love James Franklin. We hear that time and time again. Like, the majority of players that leave Penn State have like a great experience and talk glowingly about him. And part of that is like they'll follow him off the edge of a cliff, right? And so they kind of follow his lead emotionally too. So when he's in a good place, they're in a good place. And right now, they're probably in the best place they can be.
And I think also there is a link and a bridge here that's been strengthened when you look between James Franklin and alumni, right? And this program, and the fact that you see so many Lettermen coming back and that they're part of the program, right? Like, I was at Photo Day a couple weeks ago, and it's like, oh, there's Jordan Hill, there's Trace McSorley, and Danny O'Brien, who played for James at Maryland. Like, you've got these links all throughout it. But then talking to Nick Dawkins this week, Nick's getting asked about, the offensive line in 94. And he's like, yeah, like, I talked to Goon, Keith Conlon. Like, I know him. There's a relationship there. So of course I called Goon after that, and I'll have a story up on that shortly over on my Substack, Inside the Lions. But that's just another example of, like, James has been really forward with the Letterman of, hey, this is your program too. Like, you're welcome here. This is your thing. And I think years like this, and we saw it last year too, these special seasons, these playoff runs, everybody wants to be part of that, right? And it's like, hey, if you were one of the players that stayed here in the sanction era, this thing is as much yours as it is the 5-star running back, right? Like, having that collectiveness in the program is special. Not every place has that. But Penn State, I think, is really on a great playing field when when you have all those things working together. The other thing that stood out to me from James on Monday was the backup quarterback competition. They were going to get Ethan Grunkemeyer and Jackson Smolik together Wednesday to outline the week, and James fairly did not want to tell us before they told them who QB2 is. So we'll see them on the practice field Wednesday, so we will certainly know that then. It should be abundantly clear at that point. But the important part is that there's not a huge divide between QBs 2 and 3. James said that.
There is between 1 and 2, though, which is also important.
Yes. Well, yeah, you want that. But you want to be able to look at this throughout the course, especially of non-conference play, right? You have to see how this develops, and then what does that mean, John, as the season progresses for 2026, right? That's the other part of this.
That was my bold prediction, last episode.
You're a bold guy.
Yeah, the 2026 quarterback is not currently on the roster, and I still kind of believe that. It can obviously, it's a bold prediction for a reason. There are 3 quarterbacks on the roster.
Crazy.
Who will be trying to win that job. I will let you pick where we go next year, Audrey. Do you want to talk about the Nevada game, or do you want to get into our college football playoff predictions? I was going to go to Nevada, but we're talking pretty big picture right now, so it's up to you.
Yeah, let's go playoff.
Okay.
And then can we get a cut in here where I just go playoff?
No, absolutely not. We do have our 1 through 12 college football playoff predictions. If you're watching on YouTube, after the fact, you'll see this. And of course, if you're watching live, you'll see it. We'll pop them up here as we go through them. I will go through mine first. We talked about this in some extent, when we did our pooled predictions. But as you can see, if you're watching, I've got Penn State as the number 2 seed in the playoff, with Texas as the 1, Alabama as the 3, Ohio State as the 4, Clemson as the 5, Notre Dame as the 6, Oregon as the 7, Georgia as the 8, Texas Tech as the 9, South Carolina as the 10, Louisville as the 11, and Tulane as the 12. And as I said on a previous episode, I've got Penn State beating South Carolina in the second round, Notre Dame in the semifinals, and falling to Ohio State in the college football playoff national title game. As I bring us back up here on screen, Audrey, why am I so right about South Carolina and Texas Tech making the college football playoff, and why are you so wrong about not having them in?
Because you're insane.
Yes.
And you're
Listen,
not right.
I do want to say that Texas Tech tried to buy a national title, and I think they're going to buy themselves a Big 12 title. It is important to know, had we done this, I don't know, 5 days sooner, I would have had Kansas State in there. Then I watched Farmageddon, and I got bummed out. Which leads me to your prediction. I will pull that up on screen now here for everyone. If you want to run through what you've got.
Yeah. If you want to see the correct prediction, then you can check mine. I think, John, we're getting, gosh, people are going to be at each other's throats again. That Penn State Notre Dame rematch. That is going to be, that's kind of one of the things from the offseason that we got is just the Notre Dame fans and the Penn State fans continuing to go at it. But I think we get that. Later on, I got Penn State Clemson, which again, Dabo James, there's a relationship there, a little bit long-standing. But on the other side of the bracket, where you have the Buckeyes coming out of there, I have Texas. Let's get us a Penn State Texas national championship game. Drew Aller, Arch Manning. And then, John, is that all I have to say? We don't have to project a winner here, right?
I'll run through everyone here for you, and then you can decide not to tell everyone that you think Texas beats Penn State in the national title game. But Audrey has, as she said, Texas at 1, Penn State at 2, Clemson at 3, and Ohio State at 4 as the 4 buys, followed by LSU, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Georgia as the hosts of first-round games. And then 9 through 12, she has Miami, Iowa State, Oregon, and Boise State. And I just have to assume that would have been Kansas State had Iowa State not won that game on Saturday. Yeah, I think we both are.
Our procrastination, John. It paid off for us.
Yes, it did. But no, I think the broader point here is I think this is going to be a playoff that does not look like maybe what we're used to, right? Like I think there's a real chance that these teams like South Carolina, like Texas Tech, find their way in. I did not pick Miami because I don't believe in Carson Beck or Mario Cristobal. The rest of that roster I really like, but when you don't trust the quarterback and the head coach, it's kind of tough. And when the head coach literally gave a game away last year because he didn't know that he could knee the ball out against Georgia Tech, one of the most
another
impressive
year
I've seen.
And your disdain for Mario Cristobal carries on. It's a tradition unlike any other here at the Nittany Dispatch.
I'm not alone in that one. I feel pretty safe in saying that Mario Cristobal is probably not up to snuff to coach in a playoff game. But no, I think this is kind of the year that a lot of teams crash the party. That group of 5 spot is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of up for grabs, right? I think I like Tulane in it. I don't feel great about I don't feel great about Boise State with Ashton Genty obviously gone. Maddox Madsen's good, but I don't know if I believe in that offense without one of the best running backs in college football history helping lead the way. All of that is to say, I think this is going to be one of the most fascinating seasons of college football that we've seen. Last year was kind of our first taste of that, and it was like you got Indiana in, who, by the way, I really, really wanted to put in again, but I just had a hard time with it because the schedule's a lot tougher. Not an Illinois believer, just to address.
I was going to say you didn't put Illinois in,
Yeah, I think they're going to lose to Indiana. Yeah, I think they're going to lose to Indiana early, and so I think that's kind of prove the point there that if one of those two gets in, it's Indiana. I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana is like 13th or 14th. Seen a lot of projections that have Michigan in. I don't know. I watched them last year. Like Ohio State game notwithstanding, that was a tough watch consistently all season. And so I think this is going to be the kind of year, though, where it's all up in the air. Like I wouldn't be surprised, in close your ears, Penn State fans, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like a 7 or 8 seed. Like it just happens like that sometimes.
And I think that's the beauty of the playoff with 12 teams. The expansion talk will continue on, presumably forever. But, I think this is where I was doing a mailbag last week over on my Substack. And, it's like, I'm a firm believer in let's keep this thing at 12, and if you're going to do anything, go to
Oh, I'm not.
16.
I'm
But
not.
well, I was going to say you want chaos, right?
I want 28.
Yeah, and John probably wants a season that doesn't end until February.
No, I just want conference title games eliminated.
You want more games on channels that we can't find, and then and tell me that they're meaningful in January, and then we're gonna get some watered down champion, and everybody's gonna be mad all off season, and they're gonna want the BCS back, and we're just gonna continue arguing about everything.
Audrey, how many years you say you've been doing this? 16. This is 16. When are you going to learn that everyone's going to be mad no matter what?
So that is true.
Why not watch more good high-level football games in the process, and have some fun with it?
Who says we're getting high level, John?
I think it'll be high level in the playoff. And again, I don't
in your gazillion team model, we're getting high level all across the board.
Sure, why not? Eventually. But yeah, like people complain about blowouts in the playoffs. Super Bowl was a blowout. Like, I don't know. Those were clearly the two best teams in the NFL. Like, it just happens sometimes.
But here's the other piece of that.
It's sport.
We have such a small sample size because it was just last year, right? Yeah, let's run this thing out and see what happens because the team, it's all lopsided, blah, blah, blah. It was 1 year.
Give me
right?
more.
Like, if there are more blowouts this year,
64 teams.
You're sick. That is sick.
So here the actual argument is that most leagues, 50% of their membership makes the postseason, right? College football, it's whatever it is, 12% or something like that. So why would you not try or 10%, I believe, something around there. Why would you not want to go up to something more reasonable, like 25? I'm not saying 50%. To be clear, 64 would be insanity, although I would enjoy every second of it. I do think that it needs to get closer to that 25-30%, like most other models are. And honestly, with this Penn State team, by the way, when you look at something like this, they're built to withstand a run like that. I would not be surprised. I know I obviously picked Ohio State to win the national title here. I would not be surprised if that outcome happens where Penn State's playing Ohio State and I pick Penn State because they're healthier and because they're physically dominating. I just think that they're kind of built to make it through that kind of gauntlet. And when you're built like that, 28 teams might benefit you too.
So you're already flip-flopping your national championship?
No. I'm just saying that the circumstances, if things change with health, I just think they have the depth to get there. But if you look at just because I'm just going to assume that everyone's starters are healthy now. Why would I assume otherwise? But I think there's a world where it gets
glass half full guy over there. Yeah.
No, I'm just picking both, so I'm right either way. That's what that is.
Of course. No, I think when you look at it, right, and you look at, and James has even said this year, the depth is critical. When you're in a season like this, it's going to go as long as it does. The other part of this, and this is where I think you got to have some reform to this whole thing, start the season a little bit earlier, right?
Yes,
when you look at last year, Penn State came back and their players were watching the national championship game on campus for the start of the spring semester, right? So you had a season that was spanning 2 semesters. And bump it up a little bit earlier, right? Practices are always starting earlier. They're starting late July. Push everything up a week or two because then you're getting out of the NFL shadow as well. That to me is the other part of this. If you started, you could have a good 3.5 week window where you're the only one playing meaningful games, right? And we can all watch the preseason and do all this other stuff and roster cut down day and all this that we're enjoying today. But you would be the show in town, right? You'd have week 0 and yes, we're going to get this week before the NFL ramps up here later on in the following week. But I just think there's a way you can do this because last year, I forget what it was, but it's when really late in the year, the NFL starts playing those Saturday games. And it's I think you have maybe a Steelers game on, or maybe it's the Chiefs. And then it's you also have a college football game on. And where is your audience going to decide? And more often than not, your audience is going to side with the pro team. So again, I think you want to do what you can. Again, the fact that you're playing a national championship on a Monday night.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, they need to make some changes.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure the weekend you're talking about was that Steelers Ravens and then because Penn State SMU they were the noon game, I think, that day. It was so long ago already.
I think,
and there were 2 games that had implications.
You're right.
Because all 4 of those teams then played again on Christmas, and that's why they did it on Saturday, so they get the quick turnaround. Whatever.
Listen, we're gluttons for the NFL around here. We know. I mean, as you can tell by the background here, I will schedule my my weekends around the Packers, and I just love watching the NFL as a whole too. And when you're having me make these decisions, I'm gonna get mad about it, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's
I'm all
fair.
for more football, but stay in your lane. NFL, stay in yours. Stop trying to infringe because we know they're gonna keep
That's the other thing.
trying
The
it.
NFL is very much infringing upon
The
college
NFL, like
football.
they are here for the turf war, and they're gonna try to take it over as they do.
Yeah.
But that's why I also love weekends like this because you get the
I
fact
was
that
going to say,
it's
don't
biggest
have to
show
worry
in
about it on
town.
Saturday. I will be at the
Yep.
press box early Saturday. I know you will, and we will sit down and we will watch Ohio State, Texas. I think like much of the nation will, the college football nation at least. But let's get into this Penn State Nevada game. We don't have to go too in depth with this one. I
What's
think
the
we
spread,
can,
John?
yeah, I believe it's 44.5, somewhere around there. The over-under is around 51.5, 52.5, somewhere around there. This is going to be a blowout. Penn State, I would expect to come out throwing the ball to those wide receivers, trying to get them in a rhythm, trying to get them in a place where they feel comfortable, get them enough reps, and then get them out and get Drew Aller out and get Nick Singleton and Katron Allen out once they both hit a nice threshold of rushing yards to help them both chase the rushing record this year. I just don't think there's a lot of reason for Penn State to put anyone in harm's way. We'll go straight to predictions if that's all right with you. And again, don't forget, it's score prediction, and it is game MVP, and you can be as specific as you want with that game MVP. I will go with Penn State winning this game 52-7. I wanted to pick, that looks like someone who also picked 52-7.
No, not quite.
I wanted to pick a shutout. I mean, it just seems to happen late sometimes, and Nevada's a good enough team to score late with the reserves in, and I think that is well within the realm of possibility. You go ahead with your score and then your MVP, and then I'll come back with my MVP.
My score is Penn State 56, Nevada 7.
Close. No field goals.
We're close. Yeah, we're not on that. The player, because rather than game MVP, I'm sticking with player I think we'll be talking about Sunday or Saturday.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do it that way. Yeah,
because I think that's what we called it last year. And
it is, but again, it's been like 8 months, and I haven't watched any of those episodes. So
fair, Johnny. You're not watching them back to boost our numbers. Disappointed in you. The player I think that we're talking about on Saturday night, Sunday, is Kyron Hudson. You look at the transfer wide receiver, had a really strong preseason. I think this is someone who has earned Drew Aller's trust and has done so in a relatively short amount of time. So I think, John, just like last year, we were all, the receiving core, everything's fixed. We're not going to take the bait this time, but I do think we're talking in a positive way about Kyron Hudson when we next record.
I was thinking about going with receiver. I was going to go with Kobe Howard because I think he'll get enough reps to do some stuff. I'm going to go with a different true freshman, though. And that's Chaz Coleman, who I think gets his first career sack on Saturday and really puts everyone on notice about the kind of athletic freak that he is and that he can be a major part of this defensive end rotation this year. It's not to say he's going to be a starter or anything, although it could be on the table. I think this is the kind of time for someone with that kind of athleticism to really show up when you have that kind of advantage against a Nevada team that just doesn't have the talent level Penn State does. And I think Coleman is going to put everybody on notice that he's legit, that him and Dennis Sutton are going to wreak some havoc in some backfields this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he, like I said, he has his first sack and maybe a second on Saturday if he plays enough.
I got it locked in. That's why I was writing these down. I got Kyron Hudson. You got Chaz Coleman, and Coleman we know is one of two freshmen, the other one being Darius Dixon, that James Franklin is given the green light from the get-go. So if you're going to the game Saturday, keep an eye out for those guys. You can also check out my coverage on InsideTheLions.substack.com. You can check out John over at the Center Daily Times. We will continue churning out content all week here as we build up to Saturday. No shortage of storylines. John alluded to earlier, the rushing record chase. That's going to be a big storyline this year. Beaver Stadium, going to look different on Saturday. So if you're going to the game, I'm sure that is part of Saturday as well. We will reconvene post-game at some point.
Yes,
Saturday.
The plan is this season. So those of you watching on Tuesday, the plan is to go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Those of you in the chat, we appreciate you. Those of you watching right now, we appreciate you. We will be doing this. The plan, again, is every game week of the season. We'll figure out the bye week, although I would venture to guess it will look similar. But Penn State's schedule can change a little bit, so ours could too. But every game week, we'll be here live on YouTube Tuesday at 7 p.m. And every post game, we plan on going live as well. That is a little tougher to nail down an exact time, depending on when we both get done writing and how things sort of go from a game flow
And if we're getting
standpoint.
chased out of a press box. Or,
Yeah, right. And all of those sorts of things, because they tend to happen. But we will be here post-game live as well, where you can watch us on YouTube. And of course, the audio version will be in all of your podcast feeds on Apple, Spotify a little bit later. And the video will stay up on YouTube so you can rewatch it after the live show is over. As Audrey said, read all of her work at Inside the Lines. Subscribe over there. Subscribe to the Center Daily Times. Find Audrey on Twitter at OddSnyder4 or on Blue Sky if you search Audrey Snyder. You can find me on Blue Sky if you search Jon Sauber. You can find me on Twitter at Jon Sauber. This has been a lot of fun. We are looking forward to this season just as much as I think the rest of you are, and I can't wait to cover it. And I know Audrey's very excited too. But until next time, thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.